Good evening, students. Welcome to this session. Yes, so I've got good evening from Hitesh, Menon, Rafiq Bhai, Yukti. Okay, so welcome. Let us start today's session without wasting any time. So you have gone through the basic objective of this paper 7A. Then automated business processes. Now, these are the topics we are going to talk about today. Risk, its management strategies, enterprise risk management framework, controls, a brief of flowcharts. So I'll be starting topics we are going to talk about something today. To share with flowcharts. I'll give you an exercise to do today on flowcharts. Okay. Standard disclaimers. Then these three topics we did day before on 2nd of April. Yeah. So let us talk about this. A recap of day one's lecture we are having. So we talked about business process automation. We talked about then when we talk about business process automation, there is a concept that is built into it. That is the idea about integrated system. So whenever you say automation, that means there is a process that exists. And when you go for automation, what you are basically looking at is integrating the various functions, the departments, subsystems, one system to another system. So that integration plays a key role whenever we talk about the word business process automation. Then we talked about enterprise business processes, the way they were. Automated business processes, we took a live exercise on business process automation. And from here, we want to go forward. Before that, I will just have 2-3 minutes to get answers to MCQ. So let us go to that. This is the flowchart of the chapter. Yeah. So I expect you to put answer. Okay. So I expect you to give answer to this. You've gone through the MCQ, so let us do it fast. Okay. Ease of doing business. Good. Great. Next MCQ. So the idea is to test the way you read question. So now you are answering MCQ number 2. So you can say 2 and then give your answer. First C. Yeah. Okay. So all are the benefits of business process management except. So read them carefully. Okay. So as soon as I get the first answer 2 and your option 2A, 2B, 2C, 2C, D like that. Yeah. Yeah. So I think I've got the answer. First answer. Yes. Great. One need to read the question. Good. Reduce quality. Great. Thank you. So many of you have said the correct answer. Good. Next. Now, so this question, you don't answer. Allow me to explain and then you answer because this is topic for today's discussion. We are going to start discussion with these words. So let me explain to you. Then you answer. Now, the room that I am taking this session from, it has 2 doors. The door on the left side and the door on the right side. The right side opens outside the office, the building, the home. The left side opens inside. Now, if I say that door to the right side is open, that is basically a weakness. Okay. So that is a weakness. That is, the door to the right side is open. This weakness is what we call as vulnerability. That is weakness. What is the next word you learn? That if there is a vulnerability, that there is a weakness, someone can exploit. So the person who exploits that weakness, that person, individual, becomes a threat. So what is the threat? That exploits a vulnerability. What is the risk? So risk in the given example is that because the door is open, it's a vulnerability. From that open door, someone can enter, that becomes threat. The probability that the person who enters from the door, he can take away the laptops, that becomes risk. Probability of loss is risk. And value of loss is impact. So we have 4 words: vulnerability, threat, risk, and impact. Now you ask. So inadequate, so you have to select the best one. Which is born first? Okay, suppose let us, it's a very good discussion to have. So you have vulnerability, you have threat, you have risk, impact. How you reduce the vulnerable, how do you compensate the weakness? What you have, a security guard. So security guard mitigates the vulnerability. Mitigate means to reduce the impact of, किसी चीज के प्रभाव को कम करना. So we have security guard to reduce the impact of vulnerability. Now, okay. So I was giving a lot of hints, didn't get an answer, so I'm sharing this. Okay, next. Then this is again good. When you say password, so password is basically the right person has the right access. So the first aspect that the password ensures is the first aspect password ensures is yes. So the right answer is confidentiality. The right person has the right access. Okay. So we are going through this because we have already gone through this. So it's a learning process. We want to save time on this. Then Corona COVID is best example of. Now see what you basically need to look to this because our topic is business. So you have to look this from a business perspective. Okay. So Corona COVID is best example of a business risk. Lot of business have gone bankrupt. We all know due to lockdown. Lot of businesses went bankrupt. So that is 5B. So I'm doing it fast. Your answers are coming and most of them are correct. This I'll allow you to answer. Which, this is a phenomenal question. Which, if assessed poorly, will lead to maximum loss? Poor assessment will lead to maximum loss. So assessment of risk, assessment of threat, assessment of vulnerability, assessment of impact. So I'll request you to answer this question. I'll wait for your answer. Which, if assessed poorly, will lead to maximum loss? So risk is the possibility of loss, so assessment of all possible losses. Threat is assessment of all possible threat agents. Vulnerability is assessment of all possible impact. Impact is vulnerability is assessment of all possible weaknesses. Impact is assessment of the impact that you are going to have. So let us see. Yeah, good. So many of you have tried, and I think the first e-chocolate for the day has to go to Hitesh. He has said it correctly. 6C, vulnerability. Please understand, this is a fantastic question to understand how you go ahead. So vulnerability is weakness. How I started with definition of vulnerability. Chronologically, I put vulnerability first. So I identify my weaknesses, then validate what are the threat agents which can, the chance of loss is maximum. That is correct answer C. The next question is, if I have not assessed, this question is not an MCQ, it's a direct question. Give a thought to it. I've given a live example to you right now. If I do not make assessment of my vulnerability properly, what thing I will not put in place? Try to answer this. Let us go to the next question. So you are all answering this question, that if I do not assess my vulnerability properly, what I'll not be able to put in place. Then this is also a topic from today's discussion, but I wanted to create the discussion, so this MCQ has been brought here. So let us take answer of this MCQ directly, and then when the discussion comes, we'll take it again. Insurances, you transfer your risk to an insurance company. That is. Okay, so I'm expecting this answer to that question. If my vulnerability assessment is not proper, what I may not put in place. So let us see. Okay. Yeah, Deepak has tried to do well. He has used the word mitigation. Okay, so let us do it for all. The right answer will not put in place controls, because controls are put in place to reduce, mitigate the impact of vulnerability. So it is going to be a huge risk. Okay, let us go ahead. So that is the topic that we want to talk about today. So a lot of discussion we have already done through these MCQs. Okay. Now, so what exactly is risk? So let us take the definitions of these words as they stand. Risk is any event that may result in significant deviation from a planned objective, resulting in an unwanted negative consequence. So that negative risk is negative for me as an organization. The planned objective could be any entity, any aspect of enterprises, strategic, financial, regulatory, and operational processes, products or services. So it can affect any aspect of me as an entity. The degree of risk associated with an event is determined by likelihood, uncertainty, probability of event occurring, the consequence, the impact of the event if it were to occur, and its timing. So risk is basically an event that may have negative consequences for an entity. And then see, when you visualize an entity, you look all aspect of entity. It could be strategic, financial, operational, anything. So that becomes part of my risk. Great, Neha. Good. Neha is going to give a good explanation. So now, so let us take the terms again. Yeah, Menon, the terms are going to come, so I'll bring that issue. Thank you. Risk management. Now, please understand, we will be talking about risk management in more detail, because risk management is a process. Okay, it is going to cover more aspects. So we'll come back to risk management again. Let us read the definition of risk management, because within risk management, there are a number of terms which exist. Okay. How does this whole idea comes to picture? Okay, let us do. So what is risk management? It is the process of assessing risk, taking steps to reduce risk to an acceptable level. Now, please understand, I want you to underline this word, acceptable level. आप में से जिन्होंने ऑडिट पढ़ा है, in audit also you have read that auditor brings audit risk to an acceptable level. So acceptance is a subjective term. It is going to depend on the nature of entity, the business, the person who is creating that value. Here, the topic that we are discussing is basically from management's perspective. So when you say acceptable level risk, means which is acceptable to management per se. In audit, when you read the word audit risk, their auditor has to bring the audit risk to acceptably low level. So that acceptably low level is in terms of auditor. Right now we are talking in terms of management. So when you say that risk has to be brought to a acceptable level, you are looking from management's perspective. आप किसकी दृष्टि से देख रहे हैं? मैनेजमेंट के लिए कैसे उसको एक्सेप्टेबल लेवल पर लाना, एंड देन ensuring that it remains at that low acceptable level. This is important. Remains. See, please understand why this term is very important. Because every day there is a new set of risk that is generating. Okay, that is coming up. That means this. Suppose I ask you, हर दिन एक नई रिस्क का जन्म होता है. रिस्क, न्यू रिस्क आर बॉर्न एवरी डे. It could be due to technology, it could be due to anything. If I've said this to you, that there is a birth of new set of risk parameters day in, day out. If this is a concept, this is a definition, answer this question. Risk management, the question is, risk management is, fill in the blanks. Options are a dynamic process, a static process. Risk management is a dynamic process or a static process. So what I expect from you is whether risk management is dynamic or static. If you answer this question, that is going to tell me that you understand the idea behind risk management well. Risk management is a dynamic or a static process. Give answer on the chat. I'll read, then we'll go ahead. Let me go ahead. Then risk management involves identifying, measuring, minimizing. See the fantastic way it defines identification. So identification starts with vulnerability. It starts with a term above vulnerability. I'll read that term. So identification, measuring, assessment, and minimizing. How you minimize? Through controls. Okay, now let us do it. This is going to be a very, very, very important discussion. Please carry this, because this discussion is going to be valued in terms of understanding of system, in terms of questions in examination, and this is going to help you even when you become chartered accountants. That is the value of this discussion. Okay, please carry it. Let us do it very thoroughly. Okay, now, so we talked about risk management, and it's such a pleasure to see all but one saying the correct answer. It's a dynamic process. That is exactly what we need to understand. It's a dynamic process. What it means, that even if you have done your vulnerability assessment, you have put controls in place, you have mitigated the associated vulnerabilities, still, because the element of risk, the parameters could be new things may come up. That means risk management has to be dynamic process. Your vulnerability assessment is an ongoing thing. You have to see whether there is a new set of vulnerability threat that is coming up, and then you need solution to that. You need controls for that. So it's a dynamic process. Okay. Great. So very good. So see, the way you answer, 99.99 your answers are correct. That means you basically understand things the way they are. Now we need to create a habit, practice how to put this all in words in examination. That is what is needed. Great. Then next word. Now these terminologies are important. Okay. So I'll read the headers. I'll not read the details. Rest you understand. Asset. Asset is that has value to organization. So just carry this. Asset that has value to organization. Okay. Then next word is, so what is asset? So you remember the word. Then I'll ask a question to you. Okay. Just remember these words. These are very, very important. Asset. Okay. That is value. You have accounting standard on tangible assets, accounting standard on intangible asset. Asset. That is value for me. Okay. Then vulnerability is weakness. We have talked about it. I am not reading it. The presentation is with you. Please read it. Vulnerability, you know, it's a weakness. Threat, exploitation of vulnerability is threat. Okay. Exposure is value loss. Okay. कितने का नुकसान हो सकता है? Value loss. Likelihood is probability. Likelihood is probability. Attack is the way loss is created. Attack is the way threat agents acts. Like if your security is not good, threat agent may send a virus, a malware, a Trojan. Those is the attack. The way risk is put to you. Okay, the gate is open. A thief may enter. That becomes a nature of attack. Countermeasure is action, device, procedure, technique. That is basically control you put in place to reduce vulnerability. And risk, the possibility of loss. I'm doing this again. This is very, very, very important. Risk, possibility of loss due to threat agent, exploiting vulnerability, countermeasure, measures put in place to reduce the impact of vulnerability attack, the way attack is done, likelihood, possibility, probability, exposure, the value loss, threat, the agent that may exploit, vulnerability, that is threat, vulnerability is weakness, asset is anything that has value for organization. Now, the question that I want you to answer, it's an MCQ, 4 options. Let me bring the question. Okay, so we'll do something more practical today. Allow me to do it here. I've changed the question. Which if assessed poorly will lead to maximum loss? Risk, threat, vulnerability. I've removed impacted, added assets. Now you answer this question. It's a phenomenal question to learn. Once, if you are able to answer this question correctly, believe me, the whole concept of risk assessment is known to you. That is my conclusion. Which if assessed poorly will lead to maximum loss. So by the time you answer, let me just scroll through the answers you have given to previous one. So we have 2 or 3 people saying risk management is static. Absolutely not, because risk itself, the risk parameters are dynamic, so process is static. Okay, you are answering this question. By the time I am scrolling, if there is something I have to answer. Yeah, no need to put your name in the chat. So it's visible to me. Very good. Most of you have answered correctly. That is great. So this question's answer. Yes, great. Fantastic. So even one correct answer motivates me, but then I see many of you have answered correctly. Good. So this time I will like to read name. Himanshu, those who have answered correctly. So the correct answer is asset. I'll explain. Okay. So Himanshu, Samruddhi, Kalumari, Jayaprakash, excuse me for pronunciation, I do best to read. Then Venkata, Bhargavi, then Litika. Yeah. So she has also said it correctly. Then let us see. Pikali Chakradhar, asset. Great. Litika also. Yeah. So this I got asset. Now please understand why asset. See, understand, if you don't identify something as an asset, आप किसी चीज को अपनी asset अगर नहीं बोलेंगे, you know what will happen? Because if you are not identified something like my mobile as an asset, you know what I will not be doing for it? I will not do vulnerability assessment. What is vulnerability assessment of an asset? Identifying weaknesses. What is weaknesses? The way this asset can be exploited. So if I have not identified asset, that means I'll not be doing vulnerability assessment. And believe me, if you don't call something as an asset, you don't do vulnerability assessment, Everything is gone because if no vulnerability assessment, no mitigating factors like controls, no threat identification, no risk assessment, and no impact calculation. Everything is gone. That is what you need to learn about. So yes, then Jinisha has said asset, Mageshwaram has said asset, and Gehani Hariram, she has also said asset. Great, thank you. So let us go to the topic we brought. Yeah, terms. So get an understanding of the term, then sources of risk. Akanksha is it is asset. To the question we were talking about, I have changed the options. So in your examination, whenever you read MCQ, always look for the options and see the correct one. Okay. Many times we are in so fast. Oh, this is the question. This is the answer. Never do it. Okay. Read the answers correctly. Great. Sources. Now, this is again a big topic to know about, discuss. The most important step in risk management process is to identify the source of risk. Great. The areas from where risk can occur. Great. You know, just take this question, try to answer this question. All Hindi movies, अपने बॉलीवुड में जितनी हिंदी मूवी बनी है, जिनमें चोर बिल्डिंग से हीरा चुराता है, all Bollywood movies where the thief steals diamond from a building. Tell me which part of the building the thief enters from. Which part of the building thief enters when thief decides to steal a diamond kept in that building? Just answer that, then I'll come back on your answers. Okay. The keyword is source of risk. Okay. So this will give information about potential threats, vulnerabilities, and accordingly, appropriate risk mitigation strategy can be adopted. Some of the common sources of risk are commercial, legal relationships. You are bound by service level agreements. Then you have to perform as per service level agreement. If you don't perform, it creates a commercial or legal risk. Economic circumstances, human behavior, natural events, fire, earthquake, like that. Political circumstances across the world, we are seeing what is happening in Europe. Technology and technical issues, management activities and controls, individual activities. So these can be possible sources of risk, and please understand the slide says common sources. That basically mean never can you list all 100% sources of risk. Why? Because risk is dynamic. You cannot parameterize everything out of risk. रिस्क के हर सोर्स के बारे में लिखा जाना असंभव है. इतने सोर्सेस है, पर जो whatever is written are the common sources. Okay. Broadly, risk has following characters: loss that exists as a result of threat, vulnerability process, uncertainty of loss expressed in terms of probability of such loss, likelihood that a threat agent mounting a specific attack against a particular system. So this is how you look at risk, the sources of risk. Types of risk. Again, remember this slide is important. 3 basic types: business risk, technology, and data risk. We'll be talking more on this. Let us see the answer you have given. So Harshal says roof, Prabhas says back door, Hitesh says window, Harshal says roof again. Weak part, Himanshu, oh, front gate, from outside, window, weakest part. So weakest part was a good answer, but I will give the e-chocolate for roof. Chhat se aata hai wo. So if you know that a thief is going to come from roof, that means that becomes a vulnerable portion. So you need to secure that roof. That is the point. Great. That is Himanshu. Great, Himanshu. Yes, Gauravansh says underground. I don't know, you know this. There's a story, news, not story, that thieves looted a bank locker. So bank lockers are very secured. So the bank locker was on one's across the road. So other side of the road, the thief took a shop on rent. 3 months, they dig a tunnel. The tunnel went inside the road, opened from the inside of the bank locker, and they took away all the lockers. Risk. Please understand risk. Okay. Good. Then types of risk: business, technological, and data related. So businesses face all kinds of risks, that is strategic, financial, regulatory, operational. So these are the risks that are to business. Strategic risk is basically relating to top management decisions. See, sometimes you see that there will be number of cases where management took a decision today and realizing that the decision is not correct, immediately they issue a clarification or reverse that decision. Strategic risk at the top level. Financial risk relating to financial aspect. First one is very important. Say volatility in foreign currency. See, today the uncertainty across the world in terms of foreign exchange, foreign currency, exchange rate, it's all, the war in Europe is affecting all factors. Interest rate, commodity related risk, credit risk, liquidity, market risk. So within financial, this can be again topics to be talked about. Compliance risk, regulatory risk, risk that could expose the organization to fines and penalties from a regulatory agency due to non-compliance with laws and regulation. Again, ours is a king subject. On point number C, which auditing standard you recall? Because few of you said that you have read auditing and you have gone through articleship. You are doing articleship, at least one I remember. I missed the name of the lady, but she said she has completed articleship. So when I say point number C, which auditing standard I am referring to, please write the name of the standard. And operational risk relating to the way you are operating. So something happens that doesn't allow you to operate correctly. That is operational risk. Yes, Venkata Bhargavi, she got it correctly. Good. She got the name of the bank correctly. Good. So this is type of business risk. Hazard risk, residual risk. So 6 business risks: strategic, financial, regulatory, operational, hazard, and residual risk. Risks that are insurable, such as natural disasters, various insurable liabilities, impairment. So this becomes risk due to hazard, natural disasters. Residual risk, that what remains. Because please understand, try to answer this question. Can any entity put controls that ensures the risk? Means controls are to mitigate risk. So can you put controls to ensure that the risk value is 0? Again a question. Can you put controls to ensure the risk value is 0? You have to say risk value, yes, no, or 0, yes, no. The question is, can entity put controls to ensure risk value is 0? Please say yes or no to this question. So we talked about business risk. Next, technological risk. Yes, I've been talking about telling that the new in technologies, mobile banking, it itself has its own risk. In fact, before we go ahead, because M-commerce is part of your discussion, chapter 4, I always feel afraid. You know, the one thing that takes my heart away is a calculation that I lose my mobile in a theft. I cannot imagine that. Please understand, all my OTPs, mobile banking, everything is here. My Paytm wallet, other wallets, PhonePe wallet, everything is here. Google Pay is here. It's a phenomenal risk that we all carry in our pockets. Please keep a security of this. Okay. Technology risk. And let us read technological risk. The dependence on technology in business process automation for most key processes has led to challenges. So We talked about business process automation yesterday. Now today, what risk technology may create? As technology is taking new forms, transforming as well the business processes and standards adopted by enterprise should consider this new set of IT risk and challenges. It includes downtime due to technology failure. If internet goes, what happens? If electricity goes, what happens? So that downtime. Frequent changes or obsolescence in technology. We have already answered this question. Technology grows in geometric progression. The first computer was made by humans, but the second is made by computers. So computer is using its own skill to develop the next advanced computer. AI, artificial intelligence. The application side of AI is machine learning. So AI's technology is using its own intelligence to create a new advanced technology. So obsolescence of technology is the key issue. Multiplicity and complexity of the system. Yes. Then types of controls for different types of technologies. Poor alignment of business to legal requirement. Very important. Dependence on vendors due to outsourcing of IT services. Very, very, very important. So this becomes sources of technological risk. Vendor related concentration. Yes. So if your vendor has a monopolistic business and the vendor goes bankrupt, then how you survive? Segregation of duty. Maker cannot be checker. Internal control. How you ensure the same is done in technology environment like accounting system. The person who makes a cash voucher, who enters a voucher, she must not be able to modify a voucher. Segregation of duty. Again, remember this topic is going to come in virtually each of your 5 chapters. SOD. Keep a tag of this word. Then external threats that comes from cyber crimes. New social engineering techniques. Social engineering is, if you want, just carry another word, emotional blackmail. You know, you are friends and then talking to each other and there's something, suppose I have got a pattern password of this mobile and then one of my very close friends says, Atul, I want to make a phone call. Please tell me the pattern password. I don't tell. I take my mobile, put the pattern myself and then give back. So my friend feels bad. He says, मुझे भी नहीं बताएगा तेरा दोस्त हूँ ऐसा. इस तरह से when you do it like that, emotional blackmail, that is social engineering techniques, and believe me, huge losses companies have incurred due to this risk. Then governance has to be very important. You have SA 260, communication with those charged with governance. Governance, the top management that implements all controls in system. And next is again very important to ensure going concern status, business continuity. So these are technological risks that we need to be aware about. Then data related risk. Let me complete data related, then I'll go to your answers. Type of data risk. So I'll just give one line definitions. If you feel a word is not clear, you ask me again. One or two we'll do practically. I'll do with you practically here. Okay. How does it work? So data diddling. The word you need to remember is try to modify data during, before or after processing. Data diddle. Diddle means modifying. Diddling of data before, during or after process. Data diddling. Then bomb. You may call it as logic bomb. These are viruses which attack on a specified time event occurring in your system. These are malware viruses. They attack on a specified time during in your system. Like for example, there is a logic bomb. If it is in your system, you on your system, the system asks you type your date of birth. So you type your date of birth. System gives a message, happy birthday to you, and then system crashes. So this, the submission of your date of birth was a triggering event, logic bomb. That is on a logical. The extension is Christmas card. You get those cards, they hit on that day. Worm. Now, worm. So worms are again type of malware. If they are in your system, they multiply and destroy your system, capture all memory spaces in your system. Worms have capability of communicating their own self to other person. Worms can communicate on their own. These are worm. Then round it down and salami. So I like to do this practically. So allow me to bring an Excel sheet. I'll show you how round down and salami work. We'll do it practically so that you can learn. So I've shared an Excel sheet. Let us do it. Just give me a comment in the chat about the visibility. I'll just, yeah, okay. So let us do, how does round down and salami work? There are a lot of similarities in the definition. So I thought let us do this practically for understanding purpose. Okay, let us do it. Now, so suppose my average balance is 100 rupees in my bank saving bank account. The rate of interest bank gives me 12% annual. So if I get this interest, so the annual interest, or let us do, yeah. So let us calculate it. 3.5% is the annual rate of interest. So 3.5 rupees I get credit. Okay. I am changing this balance. So my interest becomes 12.25%. Now we are seeing how rounded down and salami work. Okay. There is a command in Excel, round down. So I've used round down. What it has done? It has reduced the interest 12.25 to 12. So there's a balance interest that remains, that is 0.25. So what the hacker does, he writes this logic in system that whatever interest is credited to an account, whatever is 12.25, it is rounded down to 12 and 0.25 goes to my account. Okay. So this is how this works. Now I'm just changing the average balance. So this is how this technique is going to, round down is going to work ahead. Okay. Next. What I'll do, now we'll see how salami works. Same values. Now, here, see what the hacker does. We are seeing how salami technique works. See what hacker does. He has used a command called as left, picked the 4 digits, so 3064, and the balance 0.25. So if you look to round down and salami, the resultant value loss may be same, but because the logic is different, you give different name. Now let me define the techniques. Round down is you round down value to its lower integer. Okay, let me tell you let me change the rate of interest. I just did 5%. So this 4377.5. So round down 4377.5. Same in salami. So basic, the money taken away may be same, but the logic is different. That is round down and salami. Let us go to our slide. Yeah. So round down and salami. Then trapdoors. Now this is technical. Trapdoors are like doors which are there to capture unauthorized persons who are entering. So these are used to capture unauthorized entries in system. Spoofing. Spoofing, if I say IP address, so what happens? Hackers, when they hack, so system identifies the IP address of the hacker. Now, system has some logic of understanding or worldwide whether this IP address is a genuine user or a hacker user. So what systems do all across the world, people talk to each other, identifying these are hacker IP addresses from specified countries, from specified location. When IP addresses are generated, so these are identified as hacker IP addresses. Like North Korea is one of the country where government has hackers on their payroll. It pays to hackers to steal money from across the world. So when IP address generated appears from that is originating from North Korea, across the world, all the systems start restricting access. Now, but because that person has to hack into your system, you know what they do? They create upper layer. So the original IP address is spoofed with a fake IP address. That is spoofing. So you are not able to see the real IP address so that they can gain entry into your system. Okay. So now before this asynchronous attack, let us see the queries you have put. No. Risk, you have all answered correctly. Okay. The SOD segregation of duties, Amritpal. Yeah. Thank you. So that was types of a category of attack. Now, asynchronous. Now, before you go, we need to understand what exactly is asynchronous. They occur in many environments where data can be moved asynchronously across telecommunication line. The attack uses time difference between data input and data process. So the speed at which data is being put and the speed at which data is being processed. So there could be a time gap. That time gap can be misused. Those attacks are called as asynchronous attack. It could be data leakage, stealing of data, subversive attack, that is trying to modify data during this delay. Wiretapping is listening to your communication. Wiretapping is listening to your communication. Piggybacking is like suppose I give a password. Now as soon as I give my password, system logically opens the gate. As soon as I give my password, system logically opens the gate. So because system is logically opening the gate, there is a hacker who is waiting there. So as soon as I give password and system logically opens the gate, hackers enter along with me. He sits on my back and enters. That is why it is called as piggybacking. Okay, that is. Risk management strategies. Very important. Kindly read this. Effective risk management begins with a clear understanding of an enterprise's risk appetite, identifying high-level risk exposures. After defining risk appetite and identified risk exposure, strategies for managing risk can be set and responsibilities clarified. So you create a whole framework of risk management based on the type of the risk, the projects, its significance to the business. Board and senior management may take up on any of the following risk management strategy. It can be one, more than one, and a combination of all of them. Let us see. Give your time, read. Okay. Tolerate, accept. Where you feel that the risk is minor because the impact is not going to be huge, probability of occurrence is low, so you allow it to be there. That is tolerating the risk. In this case, consciously accepting the risk as a cost of doing business is appropriate. Yah to hoga hi. Like, for example, any business you do, the chances of bad debts are always there. So, you say, okay, 0.1% bad debts, accept. Done. Eliminate the risk. It is possible for a risk to be associated with use of technology, supplier or vendor. Say, for example, using untested technology. Say, for example, using unsecured Wi-Fi. No, it must not be done. So you eliminate. You change that whole parameter. Then share the risk, transfer. Risk mitigation approach can be shared with trading partners and suppliers and insurance company. The question we talk about. So suppose you take an asset fire insurance. So what you are doing, you are transferring the fire related risk to that insurance company. Transfer. So I told you that we are going to discuss. So that was the answer to question number 7 MCQ. Transfer. Insurance is basically you transfer your risk to a third person. Transfer. Mitigate. That you mitigate the risk by putting internal controls in place. You mitigate risk. So accept the risk, eliminate the risk, share the risk, or mitigate the risk. These are 4 risk management strategies. So based on the purpose, intent, entity may accept that risk, entity may eliminate the risk. So suppose the path is difficult, you don't go there. I just for the sake of it, we all must have good association with adventure sports. Okay. So there's something called as paragliding, parasailing, there's a skydiving. So sometime in life we did parasailing, paragliding. Parasailing is like you are tied with a rope and there's a jeep or there's a motorboat. It runs and then parachute is there. So you start flying up. Paragliding is there's a parachute, there's a trainer behind you and you jump from a mountain. Skydiving we have seen. Okay. So jumping from a open plane 15,000, 30,000 feet above. Now, so I've done parasailing, paragliding, not done skydiving. So one of my friends, he told me that when you do skydiving, so they take you up in the sky, 15,000 feet. There's a trainer behind you. Okay. So he jumps along with you. But then before you take a jump, they ask you, let me do it in Hindi. क्या आप कूदने के लिए तैयार हैं? 15,000 फीट से नीचे देखता है ना, हिम्मत ही नहीं होती. At this, they take your permission up there that do you want to jump? And 15,000 feet you look down, no one has the courage to say yes. They don't listen to you, they jump along. The trainer throws you in the air and jumps along with you. So now if you don't have courage, don't do it. That is eliminating the risk. So accepting the risk, eliminating the risk, share the risk and mitigating the risk. That is. One thing I want all of you to do in your life during articleship is get associated with adventure sports. Must do. Cycling, river crossing, zip lining. Do it. It is going to change the way you look at the studies. Okay. So risk management strategies: accept, eliminate, share and mitigate. Yeah. So Amritpal is given correctly for the example is good on wiretapping. Yes. Now coming to next important topic, enterprise risk management. So that was risk and its management. Now looking at it from whole entity's perspective. So 10 seconds for you to ask any questions till what we have talked about. Very, very, very important topic. In fact, one question I asked you, you have not answered that question. I had asked you about a standard on auditing on laws, compliance with laws. Let me see if the organization will have to tolerate hazardous. Yes, let me give a live example to you. Across the globe, across the earth, the whole earth is divided into 5 earthquake zones designated in Roman numeral. पूरी पृथ्वी को 5 earthquake zone में divide किया है. Roman number से denote करते हैं. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 means the probability of earthquake of a specified intensity occurring over a period of time is highest. 5, the risk is greatest. Japan as a country, the whole country is on zone 5. Fukushima, you know. Now, because, and Japan, they have phenomenal earthquake management processes. They have regular earthquake drills. A 3-year-old kid in all Japanese homes, offices, mandatorily they were hanging lamp. And if that lamp vibrates, it's an indication that there is an earthquake. Every 3-year-old plus 3-year-old and all people older than that know that if that lamp is vibrating, don't talk to anyone, run out of the house, building, wherever you are. And every colony, every commercial location in Japan, every area, they have a designated place for assembly. So they ensure that every person responds in the same manner. To what I know now, there are more than 5,000, 10,000 earthquakes in Japan every year. But the intensity is low, but like Fukushima, huge disaster. So that is the way you look to risk. Good. So Columbari has put it correctly. That if so, you're not eliminating basically what you are doing. The example of skydiving was exactly to bring this point. You cannot eliminate risk. You can only mitigate risk. The best way is that if I cannot do skydiving, I'm afraid, then I don't take that path. So I don't go on the path where I need to eliminate it. That is why. So I avoid that path. That is. Okay. So now enterprise risk management. A word has come because this word is going to be very, very important. It is part of the next discussion also. So we'll put a lot of effort on this word. Okay. In implementing controls, it should be important to adopt a holistic and comprehensive approach. Holistic means which cover every aspect. It is not restrictive. It looks to all part of the organization and comprehensive approach. Now, see in this sentence, a word control has come. This is going to be very, very important. This word, we are going to talk a lot on that. One definition we have created for control is what? That you implement controls to mitigate the vulnerability factors. The example we have shared is like security guard outside the right gate of the room I am taking lecture because it opens on the road. So you bring controls to mitigate the vulnerability portion. Okay. Hence, ideally, it should consider overall business objective, processes, organization structure, technology deployed, and risk appetite. So when you talk of every aspect of risk management, these are the factors to be considered. Based on this, overall risk management strategy has to be adopted, which should be designed and promoted by top management, implemented at all levels of enterprise. This is again a very important word, that whatever you do, holistic approach, you implement controls, everyone has to be educated how to use those controls. I'll share more examples on this. Regulation require enterprise to adopt to risk management strategy, which is appropriate for the enterprise. So whichever enterprise you are working, the risk management strategy has to be appropriate for that enterprise. ERM may be defined as a process affected by an entity's BOD, board of directors, management, other personnel applied in strategic setting and across the enterprise, designed to identify potential events that may affect the entity and manage risk that is within its risk appetite to provide reasonable assurance regarding the achievement of entities' objectives. So this is basically the framework of enterprise risk management. This we have already answered the first question. There is a query by Kropbock. Okay, if I have announced your name correctly, I'll answer. It's a very good question. I'll answer that. Okay. No entity operates in risk-free environment. So you have already answered that. Risk cannot be made zero. And ERM does not create environment. Perfect. You have answered both the question. The way we put was that if you have mitigations, if you have mitigating controls put in place, can you make risk zero? All of you have said, except one or two have said, no. That means risk is all pervasive. It is going to prevail. It is going to exist. What you are going to do, bring it to acceptably low level. Who are you? You are the management. ERM provides enhanced capability to do the following. So when you have enterprise risk management, you can do this. जब आप enterprise risk management करते हैं, तो इन सब को करने की आपकी क्षमता बढ़ जाती है. Your capability increases. What things you can do very well? First, align risk appetite and strategy. You have a thought process. This is the risk. How I am going to manage it? So that allows me to, risk appetite means I will accept. I am aware about the risk. So I am aware about the risk. I know I have control against the risk. So my risk appetite increases. Link growth, risk and return. Perfect. There's a risk. There's a control. Control has a cost. It will hit your returns. Link all those. Entities accept risk as a part of value creation preservation and expect return commensurate with risk. You have read this. Profit is reward for risk taken. So you know it. Next is very important. Enhance risk response decision. ERM provides a rigor to identify, select among alternative risk response, avoidance, reduction, sharing, acceptance. This allows me to answer the question, what is the difference between risk sharing and risk mitigating? Yeah, good. So you have put good questions. Pooja, yes, we'll have a break at 7:15. It's a scheduled break. Break at 7:15 for 10 minutes. Okay, so we'll have a break. It's a very important topic. We don't want to break between the topic. We'll have a break, Pooja. Thank you. Okay. So risk response decision. So this allows me to differentiate to the question put by Kraubock. Please say whether I'm pronouncing it correctly. Thank you. Difference between sharing. So when I say sharing, but the risk is there. I am putting it and transferring it to you. Say, suppose you are an insurance company. Sharing of risk. Mitigating is I am myself putting controls in place. Let us take the same example. You answer this question. Transferring. You know it. Fire insurance policies, transfer of risk. Fire extinguisher is mitigation of risk. So mitigation is more what I do on my own self. That is mitigation. Okay. Then minimize operation. Yes, operational surprises. You are not surprised by something that happens and losses that occur due to those things. So this is part of enterprise risk management benefits. Identify, manage cross-enterprise risk. This is very, very important. So please understand. Let me try to give it more practical example. Imagine this e-merchants. All Amazon, Flipkart, Snapdeal, Myntra, Jabong, and so many e-merchants. You know, this success, there are a number of parameters that denote success of these people. One that I am trying to bring to you is that the success of these e-merchants relate to timely delivery of goods. So suppose the logistics, due to some reason, the logistics stop working today. Logistics is not working. I'm not saying, it's just a proposition. These are the e-merchants and these are the logistics service provider. Something happens, logistics stop working. The cross enterprise risk is so high that if logistics stop working, you know what may happen? This e-merchant's going concern may be affected, because the key to success of the e-merchant, one of the key to success of the e-merchant is timely delivery of products. That is line number 1. Read it again. Identify, manage cross enterprise risk. So when you do enterprise risk management, you make this also as an assessment. that my business is dependent on which enterprises. That is very, very important. In fact, just as an example, you can carry this Ukraine-Russia conflict, so many parameters. One issue that is coming up about is the Europe is consuming Russian gas with all the sanctions in place. The gas supply is there. That risk, that interdependence is very high. That is cross-enterprise risk. Then provide integrated response to multiple risks. Yes. So integrated response to multiple risks means the risk type, risk factors are there. You create a holistic response. So one response may have capability of taking care of more than one set of risks. So when you create such a response, it is cost effective, it works timely. So all those parameters add to it. Seize opportunity. Yes, because you have made your risk assessment, you will not be impacted by that risk. So you can think beyond that risk. If an opportunity lies ahead of the risk, you can take that. Management considers the potential event rather than just risk. And by considering full range of events, management gains an understanding how certain events represents opportunities, how you can encash. In fact, the example that I gave you of the snacks seller. So shutdown was a threat, but then the snack seller realized that I can convert that status into opportunity and see what the person was able to do. I given a case to you also today. You must have gone through the case, the vegetable vendor. Just see how people, and they are all live. Whatever cases have been brought, they are real life situations. So imagine how people are creating opportunities from events which may look like threats. That is seize opportunity. Rationalize capital, how you use your capital, how you create ROI out of products. Then, so that was benefits. Framework, what is part of it? So ERM provides a framework for risk management, which typically involves identifying events or circumstances relevant to organizational objective, the risk and opportunity, assessing them in terms of likelihood, magnitude of impact. ERM is a risk-based approach which includes methods and processes of the organization. It provides and includes identification of threats and risks, determination of the size of it, implementing controls to mitigate it. So all are part of this framework. So when you say framework, it includes identifying events, the threats, the controls to be put in place. ERM framework consists of 8 interrelated components that derive from the way management runs a business and are integrated with management process. These are detailed in next slide. So what we'll do, because we are going to take a new topic, I want to just run through your queries. We'll have a break after 2 minutes, a 10-minute break. Let me run through your queries. Right now we are continuing. So one question is risk appetite. So risk appetite is my capability of not being affected by a risk. Just for an example, the locker rooms in bank, the locker cabinets in bank are so made that, so I'm just giving you a parameter, risk appetite. So the cabinets are so made that they can withstand fire. So fire, can they withstand fire that is non-stop? No. There's a parameter that the cabinets will not melt for 3 hours when the temperature is 1000 degrees centigrade. That becomes my risk appetite. That I am a cabinet that can withstand 1000 degrees centigrade as a temperature for 3 hours. How much risk I can accept? That is my risk appetite. Then Samriddhi, risk share means more than one is having same risk. Okay, I accept your logistics is dependent. Yes. So that is. So let me just refresh your queries, and if there is none, then I'll announce and then we'll have a break. Just let me continue. Logistics is highly dependent. So it's 17:11. So we are having a 10 minutes break. We are having a break. We'll reassemble at 17:22. 17:22 will reassemble. A break. Okay, so back from a break, there are one or two queries. Karthik says, what is risk appetite? So Karthik, risk appetite is like a individualistic phenomena, means the risk that I can accept, that I can bear, and that much is not going to affect my business. That is my risk appetite. Then Amrutpal says, is risk appetite equal to acceptable risk? No, not per se. See, acceptable risk is going to be defined. It has to be value per se. They are not going to be synonyms like that. Okay, they mandatorily they need not be equal also. Welcome. So all those who have joined, welcome to all of you. Yeah. Now let us continue. So we are on ERM framework, 8 interrelated components. So we are taking these components. First, internal environment. I'll just read the components and then we'll take definitions again. I will come back to slides again. So internal environment, objective setting, event identification, risk assessment, risk response, control activity, information communication, monitoring. Now let us take these components one by one. Internal environment. So the core, the internal environment encompasses the tone of an organization, the sets the basics of how risk is viewed and addressed by an entity, people, including risk management philosophy, risk appetite, integrity, and ethical values, and the environment in which they operate. Management sets philosophy regarding risk and establishes its risk appetite. Let me give it an example. Say we are talking about so much of risk, so we need to understand the distinction. Okay. So what I'm bringing a Word document. I'll ask you a question. We want to visualize exactly what we're looking at. We don't want to imagine, we want to see it happening. So allow me to bring a Word document to allow you to understand this concept of what exactly is risk management. I'll take a very simple example to bring that idea to you. Just give me a second. Okay. Now, what we are basically, we are creating an idea. So I want to do this with a very simple question. We have talked about password. Let you answer this question. Okay. So A option is you identify yourself to system. B option is system identifies you. To give the answer to this question, what happens when you give password? What we are basically trying to create a framework to understand what is this whole idea about enterprise risk management? What is the trade-off when you talk about risk management per se? So I'm just creating an option for you to understand, to visualize how entities are going to respond to this situation. So let you answer this question. It's a good question to remember, part of exam. What happens when you give password to a system? You identify yourself to system or system identifies you? Okay. By the time you answer this, let me just go through any query you had put. Good. Very good. So B, you are fantastic people. Great. 100% is correct. My God, I need to read the name. So Himanshu, Harsh, Chetna, Milton, Afreen, Deepak, Shruti, Man, and Surya. Great. 100% correct. System identifies you. Now, if you're clear that system is identifying you, you know. The risk with password is I share my password with you, you can misuse the password. Because when you give password, system does not identifies you. It is basically identifying the password. Now, if that is clear, then yes, that is clear. If I want to remove this risk, now I am not giving option, I am giving you to think. How to remove those risks, how you do, how to do it, how you remove the risk. Yes, how you remove this risk. Imagine, visualize. I am not giving option, I don't want to give. I want you to think. The question we have put clearly, the password is risk. It can be shared, once shared, it can be misused. I want to avoid that risk. Let me refresh. Yeah, great. So I think we have got, at least I could read one answer. Yes. So this e-chocolate has to go to Akshay. The answer is biometric, thumb impression, voice, retina. This is biometric. You create biometrics. They cannot be shared. Done. That is. So this is exactly the slide that we're reading. Let us go to the slide we were reading. Just give me a second. Yeah. Internal environment. Now let us read. Internal environment encompasses the tone of an organization, set the basis for how risk is viewed and addressed by the entities, people, including risk management philosophy, risk appetite, integrity, ethical values, and environment in which they operate. Management sets a philosophy regarding risk and establish a risk appetite. So suppose management decide that we are going to have a biometric based system for access. Then another because the biometric, anything that you implement is going to have cost. So password management, password based access system and a biometric based access system given an option, biometric will be costly. Management decides to go for biometric. That is what is part of their risk management. So of the options available, a password based access system, a biometric based access system, management goes with biometric. That is part of my enterprise risk management framework. How I do it. Objective setting. We'll take this as a case study. We build on this. Okay. Objectives should be set before management can identify events potentially affecting their achievement. Say in our example, management defines that we do not want unauthorized access. हमें unauthorized access को रोकना ही है. So when you decide that you don't want unauthorized access, you go for biometric as a system. So getting it, so the way you imagine, the way you visualize is the way you implement. Event identification. In this case, what will be the event? Password sharing. In biometric, password sharing is an impossibility. But in password-based system, it's a possibility. So what event may lead to loss? So because management had an objective, no unauthorized access, you go by biometric. So potential events that might have an impact on entity should be identified. So we have identified them. Next, risk assessment. Oh, that you know. Loss of password, the risk we know. Identified risks are analyzed to form a basis of how they are going to be determined. So password sharing, see, all organizations across the world tell their employees, tell their senior managers, do not share password. But all across the world, all across the organization, no one is able to achieve not more than 60% on this. Passwords are shared. So you need to have better control. So you assess the risk and then implement controls beyond that. Risk response. Based on the assessment, you create a risk response. Management selects an approach. In our case, we went with biometric or set of actions to align assessed risk with entities' risk tolerance and risk appetite. Password. Suppose I am a bank. I cannot have password sharing. In fact, if you go to bank now, password sharing is not an option today because each officer or staff in the bank who has right to log into bank system with each terminal. Next time you go to bank, just see, go at around 10:30 or 11 a.m. when the bank is starting, you go and see. So all individuals who can log into bank system, with each system, there is a very small size biometric scanner. So they have to put their thumb impression, their biometric is scanned, verified in system. Once that is verified, then they can give their login ID password. So biometric has been made a mandate. Why? Because password sharing was a flaw that cannot be managed, impossible to manage. So you go by a better risk response. What we want to tolerate? We cannot tolerate, we are a bank. We are an insurance company. We cannot tolerate sharing of password. Because as a bank, we are dealing with third person's money. We cannot take a plea of password sharing later on. So it's just not allowed. Risk response. How you give response to that risk? Control activities. Policies and procedures you build. Information and communication. Tell all people password must not be shared. And monitoring whether things are going properly or not. Enterprise risk management. The question comes in examination, 1 minute for exam. What will be your para 1? Suppose the question comes, define the components of enterprise risk management. What will be your para 1? Para 1 will be definition of enterprise risk management. Para 2 will be these 8. And para 3, you are going to add your answer. I've tried to add answer based on passwords and biometric. If you get understanding of this, use this as an example. You can create your own. We've already talked about your para 3. Add live examples. The only requirement is it has to be logically linked to the question and logically well written. आप अपना उदाहरण लिखें, अपनी भाषा में लिखें, भाषा सही तरह से लिखें, एग्जामिनर को पढ़ते आए बराबर ऐसी लिखें और आपके पूछे गए प्रश्न से वो लिंक होना चाहिए, ऐसा लिखें. And now we have questions, so let me answer. There is a very good question that has come. Pooja has asked a question that is triggered to the next topic. So Pooja, I'll answer your question when we get into the topic. You have put a very good question. Pooja has said that whenever confidential information is accessed, you get a message. It's a very valid point, but it has a question is good. The point is valid, but there's a gap. I'll share the gap. I can give you a hint. We have seen that movie Kahani. Okay. Just the last shot when the secured system is accessed by the chief actor in the movie. So the person gets a message on the mobile. Just keep it with you. I'll come back on this. Okay. Yes, so Himanshu says, sir, there are cases of biometric being hacked, but please understand, the risk cannot be put 0. We have talked about that. Hacking through password and hacking through biometric, the differential will be tens of lakh in terms of times you can do it. So that is why it's more secured. Great action. Thank you. No, endorsement of check is a valid point. You do that. There is a signature that is there in the database. OTP works because we don't share mobile. I don't know whether you read it. People are able to hack your mobiles also. Of course, the risk is like that, so avoid. Okay. So next is controls. Let us talk about it. And then we'll answer Pooja's question. Let me see if there is anything that is unanswered. So password must not be shared. Many of you have said yes. Never share password. And in case of exigency, if you have shared password, then change next time you log into your system. Must do. Now see, I don't know whether you have done that. I tried to do an exercise to see how many passwords I use daily. So the list is 25 and still updating. 25 passwords daily. So we all find a common solution. You know what is the common solution when you have more than one login to do in a day? Please give your answers. Then I'll tell you something more. Okay. Controls. So introduction. And we'll have a lot of discussion on controls. Control is, so I will be reading from module. I'll bring the module, but let's just read the definition. Yes. Himanshu, good. Control is defined as policies, procedures, practices, and organization structures that are designed to provide reasonable assurance that business objectives are achieved and undesired events are prevented or detected or corrected. Now, in this slide, there are three very important words. First is definition. So what are controls? Controls are policies, procedures, practices, and organization structure that are designed to provide assurance that business objectives are achieved and undesired events are prevented, detected, and corrected. So there are controls are by management, implementation of management policies to achieve the business objective. Controls can be preventive, detective, or corrective. Now we are going to do lot of exercise on this. Okay. So suppose I say, give a thought. It's a very good discussion. It is going to help you a lot in your preparation for exam. And please understand these three words, preventive, detective, corrective, are part of all the other chapters that you are going to read through. Suppose I say fire is a risk. Fire is a risk. Listen to the question carefully. What is preventive control against fire? So I'll expect your three answers. Fire is a risk. You will say preventive. So this is preventive. Fire is a risk. This is detective. Fire is a risk. This is corrective. So each of you are going to give three answers. So you say preventive control, give example. P control, give example. You can say P, this. D, this. C, this. Preventive, detective, corrective. I want your answers. Once we get the answer, we will analyze it, understand it, define. By the time you give answer, let me read to your queries. So to the question I put you previously. So the question you are answering right now is, if fire is a risk, you need to give example of a preventive control, a detective control, and a corrective control. And the question I asked you previously was, because I have 25 logins, so what I do, so all of you have said, you use a common password. Yes, we all do it. It's a disaster. Because if you lose that password, you lose all 25 resources. So you never use common password. You have to, if you have 25 resources, you need 25 passwords. And please never use that password saving apps, huh? Because someone will hack that password saving app and all passwords are gone. Don't save password, Yukti. I've shared that. Okay. So PDC. Yeah, good. So Harshul says fire extinguisher preventive. Detective, I am not able to read. Corrective is insurance. So preventive, yeah, Pooja, you have to say preventive. Detective is fire alarm, pile. Yes, Himanshu. No smoking zone is preventive. That is absolutely correct. Then fire alert is detective, fire extinguisher is corrective. Himanshu, I think, yes, good. That is Himanshu is correct. Karthik, censorship, fire prevention system. Oh, not clear. Preventive is insurance. No, Farheen Fatima. Yeah, so let us do it. So it's a very good question to understand. And this discussion will answer Pooja's question also. Okay. So when I say preventive, so fireproof material, fireproof cabinet, no smoking zone, that is preventive. Detective, fire alarm, detective. Fire smoke detector, detective. Fire detector, detective. Corrective, fire extinguishers are corrective. Okay. So that understanding, see, having a fire extinguisher will not prevent fire, but having a fire extinguisher will allow you to extinguish fire to reduce the losses you are going to incur. So preventive, detective and corrective. For sake of understanding, answer this question. Your CA result. Yes. So many of you get the idea about preventive, careful handling of inflammable material. Fire extinguisher is not preventive. I made that clear very well. A fireproof jacket is preventive. Good. Fire extinguisher is corrective. Alarm is detective. Good. Okay. So Ria, preventive is that prevents the risk from occurring. So fireproof material will ensure fire doesn't come. Fireproof cabinet will ensure the files inside don't burn. No smoking zone will ensure that fire doesn't occur. That is preventive. Detective is identifying occurrence of event like fire alarm, smoke alarm. Corrective is control that you can use to reduce the loss impact due to risk. So fire extinguisher when you are going to use when there is a fire. What will the purpose of fire extinguisher? To extinguish fire, to put it down so that the losses are minimized. That is preventive, detective and corrective. Yes. Okay, so there is two. So there is Himanshu Mishra, and so this one is Himanshu Mishra. Then another Himanshu I'll update. Okay. So I'm waiting for the answer to the question. C result is you have to only one option. Huh? You can select preventive or detective or corrective. C, P, D, C, like that. Okay. So by the time you answer, let me go to the module for examples from the module. Let me open that. Give me a second. I'll just take a minute. Yeah. So here I am on the module. You have answered the question. No, Nakul, only one option you had. So Prabhas says it is detective. Then Gaurvansh also says detective. Harshita also says detective. Rashmit says corrective. Neha says corrective. Okay. So let us do it one by one. So suppose I have given my exam and I am not able to pass. For me, it is corrective. So corrective. For my elders in the family, it is detective. It tells them what I have been doing since last 6 months. मैं क्या कर रहा था या कर रही थी उनको पता चल जाता है. घर में बड़े हैं, माता पिता हैं, तो उन्हें पता चल जाता है. So for them it is detective. And if I get motivated by someone else passing, it is preventive. So it can have all three parameters. It can be preventive, detective, and corrective. And see the way things are. Less number pass and more number are not able to pass in any exam. So failure is like many people feel. So failing is doesn't bring anxiety. The anxiety comes when one of your friends who are studying with you, he or she passes and you fail. That is the toughest time in life in a CA result. So it can be preventive, detective, and corrective. Okay. Now, so examples on controls. So I'm taking from module. So one is purchase to pay. Now, purchase to procure to pay, we have talked about earlier also. It comes again and it is going to come in later chapters also. So, yes. Given below is simple example of controls for purchase to pay cycle, which is broken into 4 main components. Controls at the time of purchase, at the time of goods received. So there is a chart given, and this chart is good because see, it defines, if you can see this alphabets in the round or circles, it tells the nature of control. So we have A in blue circle, B in blue circle, C also in blue circle, G is also in blue circle, D, E, F are in black circle. Just keep a tag of it. So this flowchart is good. How controls work? So purchase, your purchase requisition, creation of purchase order, input purchase order in system, release of purchase order to vendor. Vendor receives the purchase order, sends you the goods, you create good received, you generate input receipt information, vendor sends an invoice, input invoice detail, reconciliations, account payable, and payment. So this is how it is working. So these are the controls. It is given in the module. For the sake of understanding, I brought it because this discussion is good. It talks of manual controls. So which controls are defined as manual? Manually verify purchase order, that is control A, and control B. So they say this. So purchase order to goods. So this linkage you have to do manually. That what was ordered, the same has been received. The physical checking. So this becomes manual control. Then automated controls. DEF, that is in the black. What is automated controls? Purchase order input in system. So when you create a requisition, it is automatically converted. Once goods received is validated with purchase order, the receipt information is automated done. Once vendor invoice is validated and put in system for terms, the input invoice details are automated. So there are within a system, you could have full automated, manual system as well as partly automated system. Let us see what are the part automated system. Verification of goods received with purchase order. So physical verification, one part is in system, other has to be physically done. That becomes part automation of system. That was the reason we shared it. Let us see if you have query. Okay. So let us go to the slide, PPT. Yeah. So purchase. Now, what is the core? See the example from module and what is the relevance of it. You go to our 2 days back discussion process. So what has been done? The whole purchase to pay or procure to pay process has been subdivided into its components. And one component, that 4 headers flowchart. So one component is being linked to the other component. This process of linkages is what you have created a business process automation. And once you create a business process automation, you need to ensure that one system linked to other works properly. That is what is supposed to be done. So example from module, purchase, sales, that you can all do. So we are not giving time on this one. This we have seen from the module. So module is with you. You can open the diagram and validate these controls, the nature of controls and the way they are working. importance of control. This is very, very, very important. Okay. So let me put a question to you before we go there. What will happen if controls are not there? What happens when controls are not there? Answer by your knowledge. Answer by your understanding. Answer by the way we have discussed. Controls nahi honge to kya hoga? What will happen if controls are not there? Just try to answer. We have already discussed the question. Okay. By the time, let me see what you have said. Okay. So, 500 as our chat score. So, 500 is our target. If we hit, that means we have done a good day. Okay. So, all your queries are answered till here. Great. Now, importance of IT controls. I've asked you a question. What if no controls? What happens if no controls are there? Yes. Chows occur. No mitigation of risk. Himanshu, great. Probability of fraud is where? Savita, good. So there is a possibility of chows. No one knows what to do. Because no risk mitigation, loss will be very high. Very good. And chances of fraud. So you understand very well. Thanks for this. Great. Now let us go ahead. IT controls enable entity achieve objectives. A statement of desired result or purpose to be achieved by implementing control procedures within a particular IT activity is what we want to achieve. Implementing right type of control is responsibility of management. Good. Which auditing standard I am referring to? Ours is a king subject. Implementing right type of control is management responsibility. If those controls are not there, which auditing standard is going to guide the auditor? I want the name of the specific standard. Okay. You have to pick the words as given from the slide. The standard I am referring to. Okay. Controls provide a clear policy, good practice for directing, monitoring performance of technology to achieve enterprise result objectives. IT controls perform dual role, enable enterprise to achieve the objective and mitigate this. Fantastic. So why you have controls? To help entity achieve objectives, policy framework, and also to ensure that any risk that arises from vulnerability from assets, vulnerability assessment, those risks are mitigated. Then applying IT controls. Before we go here, header is changed. There is a query by Hiral, how to answer questions. We have been doing Hiral, so it's part of the discussion. Then, yeah, if there are no controls, then system will not be working to achieve. Very good, Rashmi. SA 220 on quality of audit. Prabhas, it is not quality control, it is quality of audit. 315 is good answer. The problem cannot be now, yes, so problem cannot be prevented, detected, corrected. Very good, Mukta. Very good way of answering. Now, the standard I wanted you to refer to was 315 is good. SA 260, communication with those charged with governance, plus SA 265, communicating deficiencies of controls with those charged with governance. So these two standards and 315 taken, they are very, very, very important standards. Please understand, see, today everyone is using technology. All these standards, all the controls that you are looking at, they are going to be put in system. So all your standards have to be finally validated in system, whether they are existing in system. The audit risk has to be assessed in system. The control risk has to be assessed in system. So whatever subjects you read in inter, IPCC, final, whatever you read auditing standard, you read accounting standard, you read income tax, you read GST, you read customs, whatever you read, whether it is being implemented properly, validation of all that you are reading is going to be done through this paper 7A, Enterprise Information System. That is why I say this is king of all subjects. That is how you look at it. Okay, now applying IT controls. Good. So many of you have answered. 610, Nakul. Yeah, 610 I think relates to internal auditors work being used by external auditor. Okay, we'll take that, but not very specific. 315, 260 and 265. So applying IT controls to types of general IT controls and application control. Let me ask a question. I want you to understand before we read, and believe me, you will all say correct answers. So I am giving you two options. You say whether this is general control or application control. Two options. You say whether it is GC or AC. I talked about vulnerability. The right gate is open. I have asked a security guard to stand. I am asking a security guard to stand. So security guard outside my gate is general control or application control. Security guard outside my gate is general control or application control. You can say SG, GC, AC first. Second, I am using Tally. I allot all of you passwords in Tally. Passwords in Tally has rights. What you can do, what you cannot do as a user of system. So when I give you password in Tally, whether that password is a general control or application control. So what you have two questions to answer. Security card GCAC, password GCAC in Tally, password in Tally. Answer. Let me refresh. Good. So I think most of you have answered correctly. Okay, yeah, good. So security, very good. 1, 2, oh, fantastic. So more than 80% of the answers are correct. Security guard is general control and Tally is application control. Tally password. With this example, let us read the definition. So let us go ahead. Okay, so let me clarify the definition. So general controls are controls applicable irrespective of the location nature to the whole entity. Application controls are specific to application. So Tally password is specific to application. Security guard is for the whole entity. GC and AC. Okay. So let me see. Yeah. So most of you have answered. 80% you have answered correctly. Great. Now applying IT controls. So it is important for an organization to identify controls as per their policy, procedures, structure, configure it within IT software as used in the organization. There are different options for implementing control as per the risk management strategy. We have already taken example of password and biometric. For example, the way banking is done in a nationalized bank is traditional way with rigid organization structure of managers at different level, officers, clerk, clear demarcation between department and function, whereas in private sector, it is more unstructured, it is more customer focused, but this is only an illustration. Please understand, banks are evolving. In fact, many public sector banks have created something called as SBU, Strategic Business Unit. So there are dedicated branches for small medium enterprise. There are dedicated branches for retail loan. Retail loan means, this is all part of discussion, chapter 5, core banking system. Retail loans are vehicle loan, education loan, house loan. So every bank has its own parameters. So PSBs, public sector banks, are also evolving. They are adopting this unstructured way of working so that customer gets service. In fact, just for the sake of it, the bank, I have my saving bank account. It is because it's net banking, mobile banking, everything is through online. I just calculated that how many times I go to my bank where I have my saving bank account. I realized that in 3 years, last 3 years, I went only 2 times. That is not even once a year. So much automation is there. So, and I have saving bank account that is in a public sector bank. So automation is going on. It's a learning process. So what you are basically looking at, how you look at this paragraph is that whatever is your strategy, that has to be part of your implementation. Password can be a good example. That we don't want loss due to password, we will have biometric as a system. General controls, macro, whole organization, application control to application. Specific application like Tally. We have taken this example. SBU, yes. SBU is Strategic Business Unit, part of 7B. So application controls are to specific application, general controls are to the entity. Okay. This can be a huge topic. Applying IT controls, general controls. So we'll take one by one. So allow me to read through and then I'll give you. So I first read the lines and then give examples. Information security policy, administration access authentication, separation of key IT functions, management of system acquisition implementation, change management, backup recovery business continuity, proper development implementation of application softwares, CIA or softwares and data files, incident response. I'll be reading more. I'm just running value added service, value added areas for service level agreement, user training. Okay. Now we'll take one by one. Information security policy. So what it means? I'm just giving, there are details in the module. You can read through that. I'll just give you single lines for all of this. Yeah, just please that SBU is part of your 7B. Yes. Information security policy. See, it's a document created by top management, board of directors, senior management. It defines me as an entity, my thought process. Like, for example, we do not want any loss through sharing of password. It becomes my policy framework. Now that policy need to be implemented. So when I say that top management decides not to implement, have to ensure password is a secured mechanism, then you create biometric system. Second, administration, access and authentication. How it shall be regulated. Who is going to do what? That definition. Separation of key IT function. This is very, very, very important. There is more elaboration that you will find on this part in the subsequent chapters. Only for example, the person who is developing a system, who has developed the system, he, she must not be a person who is going to do the quality check of system. If a developer is going to do quality check, compromise, internal control missed, maker cannot be checker. One. Second, the person who is using the system, who is finding queries in system, who is finding problems. See, a system is developed, given to the user, user is using the system. So person who is going to use the system is going to find some problem. Some rectifications have to be done. Some updates have to be done. These updates cannot be done by the user himself, herself. There has to be a separate person who is going to do that updates. Separation of IT function. So maker cannot be checker of the quality. User cannot be creator of the change. Management of system acquisition and implementation. It's a huge topic. You acquire a new system. How you acquire? What is the process of acquisition? Once you acquire, how you implement that acquisition, that. And change management. Change management is updating system, making changes. I'm just bringing very simple example to you. We all do this error. So like the net banking password that we use, every 90 days, you have to change your net banking password. Then there is a combination 8-digit and alphanumeric password, small case, uppercase, lowercase, special symbol, everything has to be there. So because every 90 days we have to change and there are 25 such passwords you have to change. So sometimes we get anxious. Okay. In that anxiety, when this password change option comes next day morning, you create a very complicated password, shift. So press shift and then press some digits 8, 9, 10 and 890 and you create a password. The system says you have created a strong password. So as soon as you create a strong password, you are happy. You have created a new strong password. Next day morning when you come, you forget the password which you have changed. That is change management. The problem is that when you do a change, you need to document that change, some way of documenting it. So change management is again a big topic to talk about. This change management relates to changes to be made in system you are using, like new GST rate, like TCS, like invoice, how you implement those changes. Then backup, recovery, and business continuity. These are, you need to take backup. So frequency of backup, form of backup, how you restore backup, on what media you take backup, online backup, offline backup, where you physically keep your backup. All these considerations are part of this one. Then proper development, implementation of application software. So whatever software you acquire, it has to be properly developed, implemented as per the need of the business. That is very important. CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability of software and data file. So you are going to ensure CIA through proper storage, proper access control, proper password, no sharing of password to ensure it is there. Next is again important, incident response and management. I am giving you with an example to understand. The attack on World Trade Center 20 years back. No one in the world imagined that such a high-rise building can be hit by airplane, and that airplane is going to behave like a potential bomb. More than 3,000 people lost life in that attack incident. Now, before the attack on World Trade Center, no one knew this can be a risk. Now, because we know, we have created a response to the incident. What is the response? I'm sharing a response with this example, where no aircraft can fly above them. So what you have, incident, World Trade Center, response, ensuring that all critical buildings are identified, documented, circulated, and management, like ensuring that it is complied with. Incidents, response, and management. This is again very, very, very important topic. Then service level areas. We are chartered accountants. We provide service to our clients. So timely service, timely return filing is our obligation. So service level agreement, how you ensure that whatever service means, suppose I am a company, I may have service level agreement with other users. How I ensure that I ensure compliance with those service level agreements. And next is very, very, very important. I'll share with a live example, user training and qualifications of operational personnel. Very important. User training is very, very, very important. The school I took my schooling, when we were in 6th class, in our school, fire extinguishers were installed. So now students have to be trained how to use fire extinguisher. So in the open ground of the school, we had a big open ground, 4 football field. That was the size of the ground. There's still some space left. So all students were called. Principals were giving instruction to a staff member, a peon in the school. So asking that peon to create a heap of dried leaf and figs. So big heap was created. It was lit. Fire was burned. And now an instructor was giving instruction to a staff member to start the fire extinguisher. The trouble was that the staff member who was taking the instruction, he himself was taking the instruction for the first time, operating the fire extinguisher for the first time. So by the time he could start the fire extinguisher, the fire was gone. User training. Very, very, very important. IT general controls, believe me, I've made it very, very short. Each line given can be discussed for 1 hour non-stop. Applying IT controls. Okay, next. After this, we'll go to the queries. Application controls are controls which are implemented in an application to prevent, detect, and correct errors. These controls are inbuilt in the application software to ensure accurate, reliable processing. These are designed to ensure completeness, accuracy, authorization, and validity of data capture and transaction processing. Some examples of application controls are on the next slide. Let us go. So the tally password was a good example of application control. Let us go ahead. Data edits. You can only edit specified field. Let me share with an example. Okay. Suppose I am using Employee, let me share a Word document. Let us do it practically. A very good example. Okay, data edit is the word. Now let us see. So what you are looking at is employee database. There are 4 fields. Name, date of birth, address, and salary. 4 fields in employee database. The keyword is data edit. You have to answer in the chat box of the 4 fields, which field once created will never be edited, never be edited. By the time you answer this, let me run through your queries. Application control is at application level. I want to avoid the word micro or macro. It is for the application. Yes, that was Jasprit. I am saying yes to your query. Yeah, OTP is a good way. Yes, Surbi. Good. So Himanshu says date of birth. Karthik says name and date of birth. Prabhas says name and date of birth. Let me just refresh. Good. Yes. So most of you say correctly. Of the 4 fields which can never be edited once created is date of birth. Name is also legally you can change your name. You have to publicly announce, but there is a process of changing name. So of the 4, there is only 1 field that is never going to be edited is date of birth. This control you have to bring in application based on the nature of application that is being used. Data edits. Great. Then separation of business functions we have talked about, that the person who creates a voucher, he or she must not be able to modify the voucher. Balancing, yes, very, very, very important. In fact, those who are doing articleship and those who will go, like it's a period of bank audit, you go to bank audits. So banks maintain their system on GLSL, general ledger and sub ledger. So those who are going to go for bank audit, there's a report that you do, long form audit report. That was the point, Jasprit. That was the question, that you cannot edit. So you look to it in a reverse manner, that this field cannot be edited. That is the control. Okay. Okay. So, okay, I get the point Jasprit wants to make. See, Jasprit, out of the 4 fields, 3 can be edited, 1 cannot be edited. So which is better to define? Which can be edited or which cannot be edited? So because which cannot be edited is a small number, you define that you cannot edit. So that is how controls actually work. Okay. Now, so separation of business function we have done. Balancing of control total. So in bank audit, those who are going to go for articleship, and once you get a chance to go for bank audit, in the long form audit report, an audit format, which is done by a branch auditor submitted to RBI, there is a question whether the GLSL tally, please understand, you have read general balancing ledger entries you have done in your accounts. So that balancing of control totals, processing totals. Then transaction log, list of transaction generated in system. Error reporting, this is phenomenal. Exception reporting, transaction not as per the rules. Error, erroneous transaction, exception, not as per rule. Like, for example, creditors with debit balance is exception. Can you have a debtor with credit balance? Say yes or no. Can you have a debtor with credit balance? Say yes, no. That becomes exception. Reverse case, can you have creditor with debit balance? Say yes, no. It's an exception. So how exceptions are reported? That is part of application controls. Then indicators of effective control. Okay, let us just read this one because I want to save time today for some discussion on flow chart. I want to give you exercise on flow chart. Okay. Okay, so this one is easy, fast we can do. The ability to execute, plan new work such as IT infrastructure upgrades required to support new products and services. So if controls are good, then you can do this easily. That is. So there are no surprises. You can allocate things. Then that means controls are working. Consistent availability, reliability of information, clear communication, ability to protect against new vulnerabilities. Risk is a dynamic process. New vulnerability, new weakness may come, new threat may come. You need to compensate them. Efficient customer support, heightened awareness. Framework for internal controls as per standard on auditing, that is reference to SA 315. So I'll request you to go through this standard directly from the module. We have talked about this. Then internal control system, it facilitates the effectiveness and efficiency of operation, helps ensure reliability of internal, external financial reporting, assist compliance with laws and regulations, help safeguard assets. So this is, you have all read, these are core objectives of internal control. Someone referred to SS 610, it's there in that also. Components. Okay, so what I am doing, we are stopping here. Internal control components will start on April 6th. Right now, I want to give you exercise on flowchart. So I expect you to make a flowchart. Let us have a small discussion on flowchart. We are not reading this, okay? We'll do this on April 6th. Yeah, so here is flowchart. Now, I want you to take picture or screenshot of the screen. Please take it. Yes, nothing is theory, Mukta. Everything is practical. The time is a constraint. Believe me, each line that I am reading, I told you I want to give a 1 hour lecture on each line, but that doesn't exist for us. Okay. So flowcharts, please take picture or screenshot of this. These 3 flowcharts you have to make. Then before we conclude this, I want to discuss about flowcharts. See, flowchart is one topic which is 100%. You get 6 marks flowchart, you get 6, 8 marks, you get 8, 10 marks, you get 10. So this is one part of the module of the exam that you get 100% marks. Yes. So you have answered, yes, they can have, debtors can have credit balance. Creditors can have debit balance. So debtors you take advance, it becomes credit. Creditors you give advance, it becomes debit. So these are exceptions. So how system records, this exception is part of application control. Okay. Now, so flowchart, you have taken this, then let us go to the module. I want to show a screen on flowchart, which are core symbols, and I want you to make. So I believe you have all taken the screenshot of this. Make the 3 flowcharts. On 6th, when we reassemble, we'll first solve the case study. A case study has been given to you today. I understand you have all downloaded the case study, gone through the MCQs. So we'll solve the case study. I want you to make these 3 flowcharts. We'll see the solution of the flowchart and then continue discussion. Okay. So let us go to the module. We want to see the flowchart symbols. So I've shared, I'll have to just go slightly down. So here is, yeah, flowcharts. See, as simple as that, whatever question you have been asked, what you first do, logically write in plain English हिंदी. जो सवाल दिए हैं ना फ्लोचार्ट के, उसको सिर्फ ऐसे लिख कर सॉल्व करना पहले हिंदी और इंग्लिश में, और उसके बाद इन सिंबल्स को यूज करके फ्लो चार्ट बनाओ. ठीक, यू कैन डू इट. So these are the basic flowchart symbols: the process, the decision, document, data start, and you'll have end. Yeah. So these are what basically the flowcharts I have given. You'll only require to use this symbols in the first row like this. This will help you make all the flowcharts I have given to you. You will not require beyond these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not more than 6 symbols. Do these flowcharts. Even see, to me, flowcharts is like pure maths. You do based on your own logic and understanding. Make them logically correct. So what we'll do when we meet on 6th again, we'll solve the case study, the flowchart. I'll show you the flowchart. I'll show you how to check your flowcharts in examination to ensure that you get full out of full marks in flowchart. अपने पास 80% से कम नंबर लाने की जगह नहीं है. We all want to get 80% marks in examination. Okay. So this is what I want you to do. Flowcharts. Now let us have some queries from you. Okay. So make the flowchart be as simple as that. तो बिल्कुल आसानी से करें. Don't take, be easy on that. Create an understanding, and based on that you can create your own flowcharts. Okay. So this was the exercise, but because this has allowed us to save time, let us go to this one. Yeah. So this will allow us to complete today's session. So flowchart I have talked about. You have to draw the flowcharts. Next day when we meet, we'll solve the flowcharts. Now coming to this part, internal control components. So 5 components: control environment, risk assessment, control activity, information communication, and monitoring of control. Let us take one by one. Control environment is what? So please understand, control environment is top management's process. Top management कैसे सोचते हैं? That is control environment. Various levels of the organization. The control environment comprises the integrity and ethical values of the organization, the parameters enabling the BOD to carry out the governance responsibility, the organization structure, assignment of authority responsibility, the process for attracting, developing, retaining competent individuals, those who understand controls, and the rigor around performance measures, incentives, rewards to drive accountability for performance. The resulting control environment has a pervasive impact on the overall system of internal. Pervasive means all prevailing. So you need to have good internal control environment. Then risk assessment. So entity faces a variety of risk from external, internal sources. So what entity needs to do a proper risk assessment? We've talked a lot on risk assessment. So we'll save this time here. How you respond. So that is based on the risk assessment. Part of internal control, 5 elements. Then based on this, control activities are actions established through policies, procedures that help ensure management's directive to mitigate risk to the achievement of objectives to be carried out. So you have the thought process, you have the assessment, then you implement controls. This includes preventive, detective, manual, automated, authorizations, approvals, verifications, recons, business performance review. So these are all parameters type of control activities. And people need to be informed that this is a control. Information is necessary for all entity to carry out internal control responsibility in support of the objective. Management obtains or generates and uses relevant and quality information from both internal, external sources to support the functioning of other components of control environment. So everyone needs to be informed. Password must not be shared. That is an information. You communicate. If there is a fire, how to operate fire extinguisher is an information. Communication must do. And generally it flows from top to down. Very, very important. Last is monitoring of control. So you establish control, you check whether the controls are working properly or not. That is monitoring of controls. Okay. So that is components of internal control. On flowchart, you have put questions. Don't worry. When we meet on 6th, we'll be drawing a flowchart. I'll be making that with you. Or okay, what we do, we'll make one flowchart now. Let us make the, are you ready? So let us do the first flowchart with you so that the understanding comes. You can do it on your own. Let us do it. I'll do first flowchart. Yes. So what I'll require is the, just a moment. Okay, what I'll do, because I have got this flowchart ready. So what I'm doing, I'm bringing it to a Word document and we'll see how it works. Okay. Just give me a second. I'll just bring it. I'll open that solved flowchart for you. So this will give you an idea how you are going to do it. Okay. I'm sharing a solution. It's a good thing. So first question was, the given question requires you to add 3 numbers. Okay. So let me make it slightly, yeah. So start. So we are using the start symbol. Then this is important. Please use CAWL, clear all working locations. Now, the C, you can use the short form CAWL. This is a very important thing you need to bring to all your flowcharts. This is here. See, clear all working. What flowchart has memory registers? You have read it. So if you don't clear working location, there is a chance that the variable that you are reading may have a prior value in the flowchart. So we want to avoid that situation. So to avoid this, what you need to do, clear all working locations. Read. So you are basically, what is the flowchart exercise? Adding the 3 numbers, the first flowchart that you are working on. Adding 3 numbers. Start. Clear all working location has to be mandatory command. If you don't give this command, you lose marks. Because what flowchart is, basically flowchart is flow of input, process, output in system. How it is going to process in system. So you need to do it in this ethical manner. So first flowchart we have seen. I want the 2 others to be made by you. Use the symbols. It's an open book exam. The questions I've given, you can review the flowcharts from the module and make it. Please make it. Even if incorrect, do make it. That is the point. Flowchart is a diagrammatic representation of how a computer program is going to work. Flowchart is a diagrammatic representation of how a computer program is going to work. Like in the question we are solving, we gave a query that draw a flowchart to add 3 numbers. So this flowchart, when you write a program, say basic, COBOL, Java, whatever. So how it is going to process in that, this represents. So flowchart represents how program is going to work in computer. A diagrammatic representation. That is. So this is for today. Just refreshing. Any query you have, please ask. Mukta, I miss, because it has been coming in exam, so I understand it will come in exam. That is, so I don't know. I cannot answer it. But I think Sukriti madam in day one session, she gave that every chapter has some weightage. So within that weightage, this will, if it is there, then it can come. like that. Okay. So that is for today. Thank you. Our chat score is 650 plus. So it's a record. Thank you. Just 30 seconds for any query. We'll close. So we are at the end of the session. We are going to close it in 30 seconds. Any query? Let us wait for that. Let me refresh again. So it is taking its time to refresh. Yeah, it is there. Yeah. Yes. So there are number of symbols, but understand that you have to remember those. If you even go to the module, see all the symbols are flowchart symbols. If you read the module, you'll find that of all the symbols given, there are roughly 6 to 8 symbols which cover virtually all the flowcharts. So remember those 10 symbols that will do your job. That is. So that is answering Neha's your question. Thank you. Bye. We are closing. Yes.